If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories filled with truth, healing, and second chances. Red Heart. The envelope had been waiting for 7 years. Kang Do-Yun stood outside the old house with one hand resting on the gate, staring at the windows he once knew by heart. He had come for documents. Nothing more. A final signature, a final sale, and one final reason to close the door on a life he had already buried. Then the front door opened. Nia Mensa stood quietly inside. At 34, she carried herself with the same calm strength he remembered. But her eyes were different now. They no longer searched his face for answers. "Come in," she said. Do-Yun stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of coffee and rain. For one brief second, memory pulled at him. The long evenings, the arguments left unfinished, the silence that had grown between them until it became stronger than love. He tightened his jaw. "I'm only here for the property papers." "I know." Nia walked toward the table. A single envelope rested beside 2 untouched coffee cups. Do-Yun stopped. The paper had turned slightly yellow with age. His eyes moved to the handwriting across the front. His breath disappeared. He knew those letters. His late father had written that way, careful, firm, and slightly uneven near the end of every sentence. Nia noticed his expression. "You recognize it?" Do-Yun did not answer. Instead, he moved closer. His hand hovered above the envelope but did not touch it. "Where did you get this? For years I wondered when you would finally ask." His eyes lifted sharply. "Nia!" She held his gaze, but there was no anger in her face now. Somehow that hurt more. "You came here for a house," she said softly. "But you left something far more important behind." The words settled between them. Do-Yun looked away. "If this is another attempt to explain what happened..." "It isn't." Her answer stopped him. Nia slowly pushed the envelope toward him. "I spent 7 years deciding whether you deserved to see it." His expression hardened. And I realized this was never about what you deserved." A flicker of something crossed his face. Regret. Fear. Perhaps both. Outside, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Do-Yun finally picked up the envelope. The seal broke beneath his thumb. Inside was only one folded sheet. He opened it. His eyes moved across the first line, then stopped. His face went still. Nia watched him carefully as the silence deepened. Written in his father's unmistakable hand were 7 words that made Do-Yun slowly lower the paper. "Do not trust the person who benefited from your silence." Do-Yun read the sentence again. Then once more. But the words refused to become clearer. Instead, they pulled him backward, 7 years into the past, when silence had first begun to live inside their marriage. At that time, Kang Do-Yun was fighting to save a hotel company that seemed to be slipping through his hands. Every morning began with meetings. Every night ended with contracts, numbers, and unanswered calls. Across the city, Nia Mensa was building a dream of her own. She was an architect who believed a building should remember where it stood. Her designs carried warm earth tones, local patterns, open courtyards, and spaces filled with natural light. She wanted people entering a hotel to feel the spirit of the place, not just the price of the room. Do-Yun admired her work. But admiration was not the same as understanding. One evening, Nia placed a set of drawings on the dining table. "I want to show you something," she said. Do-Yun barely looked up from his laptop. "Tomorrow? You said that yesterday." His fingers stopped over the keyboard. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he closed the laptop, but the damage had already been done. Nia slowly gathered her drawings. "It's fine," she whispered. It never was. Nia had courage when facing the world, but when it came to her own pain, she became quiet. She believed love should not need constant explanation. Do-Yun had a different weakness. He believed every problem could be solved if he worked hard enough, and that asking for help only made the burden heavier. So they began losing each other in small moments. Then the hotel plans disappeared. Confidential expansion designs, financial details, and private agreements were suddenly missing. Within hours, evidence appeared. Emails. Copied files. A timeline. Everything pointed toward Nia. Do-Yun stood in his office holding the documents while Nia faced him from across the desk. "I didn't do this," she said. His face remained still. "But the evidence says otherwise." Her eyes changed. Not with anger. With disbelief. "You know me." "I thought I did." The words landed harder than either of them expected. Nia looked down at the simple ring still resting on her hand. Slowly, she removed it and placed it beside the scattered documents. Do-Yun watched but said nothing. That silence became the wound neither of them knew how to heal. Back in the present, Nia turned toward the hallway. "There's something else you should remember." Do-Yun looked up. She stopped beside an old wooden cabinet. "The envelope was hidden inside that locked drawer." His eyes narrowed. Nia rested her hand on the brass handle. "You were the one who sealed it, Do-Yun." Do-Yun stared at the brass handle, and for the first time that evening, uncertainty entered his face. "That drawer?" he asked. Nia nodded. "It hasn't opened since the night you locked it." Rain whispered against the windows as Do-Yun stepped closer. The old wooden cabinet stood exactly where it had 7 years ago. He remembered buying it after Nia had complained that their plans and papers were always scattered across the house. His hand moved toward the handle, then stopped. "I don't have the key." "You don't need one." Nia reached behind a framed painting and removed a small metal pin. She pressed it into a narrow opening beneath the drawer. There was a soft click. The drawer opened. For a moment, either of them moved. Inside lay the remains of a life they had both tried to forget. An old hotel key rested near the front. Beside it was Do-Yun's broken watch, the glass cracked across its face. Underneath lay a faded wedding invitation, its corners curled with age. Do-Yun picked up the watch. "I thought I lost this." "You did," Nia said quietly. "The night everything fell apart." His thumb brushed across the cracked glass. For years, he had remembered that night only as the night Nia betrayed him. Now, even that memory felt uncertain. Then Nia reached beneath the invitation. "There's one more thing." She pulled out a photograph. It showed a hotel presentation from years ago. Nia stood beside a large model of her design, her expression alive with hope. Do-Yun stood near her, looking proud. For a brief second, something softer passed between them. Then Nia pointed toward the background. Do-Yun's expression changed. Standing behind him was Kang Min-suk, his older cousin, his business partner, the man who had stood beside him after his father's death, the man who had helped him rebuild the company when investors were leaving. "What about him?" Do-Yun asked. Nia leaned closer. "Look at his hands." Do-Yun studied the photograph. Min-suk was holding a dark folder. His eyes narrowed. The folder looked exactly like the one that had contained the confidential hotel plans. "That doesn't prove anything," he said quickly. Nia looked at him. "I didn't say it did." But the silence that followed felt heavier than her words. Do-Yun turned the photograph over. Something had been written on the back. The ink was faded, but still readable. His breath caught. The truth was changed before it ever reached him. Kang Min-suk did not look surprised when Do-Yun walked into his office. That was the first thing that made Do-Yun uneasy. Min-suk slowly closed the file in front of him and looked toward Nia, who stood beside the door. "So," he said calmly, "the past has finally returned." Do-Yun placed the photograph on the desk. "Explain this." Min-suk glanced at it. His expression barely changed. "A photograph? You were holding the same kind of folder as the missing hotel plans." For the first time, Min-suk leaned back. Then he smiled faintly. "After 7 years, this is what you bring me?" Do-Yun's jaw tightened. Nia said nothing. Min-suk turned his attention toward her. "I warned you about this." Nia remained still. "You think I came here for something?" she asked. "I think you know Do-Yun still carries guilt." Min-suk folded his hands. And guilt makes people easy to influence. Do-Yun looked at Nia. For one dangerous moment, doubt returned. Min-suk noticed. She had every reason to want more. He continued. Your company was struggling. Her designs were becoming valuable. Perhaps she simply believes the past can still give her what she wanted. Nia's face showed pain, but she did not defend herself. Instead, she opened her bag. From inside, she removed a worn business contract. She placed it in front of Do-Yun. Read the signature. His eyes moved to the bottom of the page. His father's name. The room became quiet. Do-Yun read further. His expression slowly changed. The document stated that Nia's architectural concept was never meant to remain an employee proposal. She was supposed to become a creative partner in the hotel expansion project. Do-Yun looked up. You knew about this? Nia nodded once. Your father believed in my work. And you never told me? You stopped listening before I found the courage. The answer left him silent. Across the desk, Min-suk's hand tightened around his pen. It was a small movement. But Nia saw it. So did Do-Yun. The confident calm in Min-suk's face had cracked for only a second. Do-Yun turned another page. This agreement is incomplete. Min-suk stood slowly. Of course it is. Do-Yun looked at him. What does that mean? Min-suk walked toward the window, his reflection dark against the glass. For years, Do-Yun had trusted this man like family. Now, standing only a few steps away, Min-suk suddenly felt unfamiliar. Then he spoke without turning around. Ask yourself something, Do-Yun. Nia held her breath. Min-suk finally looked back at him. Why do you think your father never showed you the complete agreement? The missing pages were not the only thing that unsettled Do-Yun. It was the thought that his father had written something important, and someone had made sure he would never read it. Nia placed the old diary on the table between them. Do-Yun stared at it. My father's? Yes. The leather cover was worn, its edges softened by time. He reached for it slowly, as if touching it might bring back more than memories. Where did you find this? I didn't find it, Nia said. He gave it to me. Do-Yun looked up sharply. You had this for 7 years? Nia did not answer at once. Her fingers rested against the table. I had it before everything ended. He opened the diary. The first pages contained familiar handwriting, hotel notes, meeting dates, ideas written quickly in the margins. Then Do-Yun stopped. Several pages had been torn out. Only uneven strips remained near the binding. His expression hardened. These pages were removed. I know. Who did it? I never found out. Do-Yun turned another page. A single entry remained dated only weeks before the missing plans had appeared. His eyes moved slowly across the words. His father had written about a disagreement with Min-suk. Not a simple business argument. A disagreement about the future of the company, and about who should be trusted with it. Then Do-Yun reached the final line. He froze. Nia must have equal creative authority. Her vision is essential to what this company can become. For a long moment, he said nothing. You knew about this? Nia nodded. Not all of it. But enough. You were supposed to be my partner. Your father believed so. Do-Yun closed the diary halfway, his hand trembling slightly. Why didn't you tell me? A quiet sadness touched her face. Because you had already accused me of destroying your trust. That could have cleared your name. Or made me look desperate. Her voice remained soft, but her eyes did not leave his. I didn't want your father's memory to become another weapon in an argument. Do-Yun looked away. For years he had called her silence proof of guilt. Now he wondered how much courage it had taken for her to walk away carrying the truth alone. Nia gently turned to the final remaining page. Near the bottom was another note in his father's handwriting. Do-Yun leaned closer. The words were faint. If the truth disappears, listen to what I left beneath Riverside Hotel. His eyes lifted slowly. Nia whispered, a voice recording. The room fell silent. And suddenly, Beneath the oldest hotel his family had ever built, the past no longer felt buried. The basement beneath Riverside Hotel had been closed for so long that even Do-Yun had forgotten it existed. The old hotel key felt cold in his hand as he and Nia descended the narrow staircase. Above them, the hotel continued its busy life. Below, the air was still, carrying the faint smell of dust and old wood. This place was used for company archives, Do-Yun said. Nia glanced at him. Your father knew where to hide things. They reached a small room at the end of the corridor. Against the wall stood a metal cabinet. Do-Yun stared at the lock. Then he inserted the old key. For a second, nothing happened. He turned it again. Click. The cabinet opened. Inside sat a small recording device, wrapped carefully in cloth. Do-Yun did not move. Nia stepped closer, her hand hovering near his arm without touching him. Play it. He pressed the button. Static filled the room. Then his father's voice emerged. Older. Tired. But unmistakable. Do-Yun, if you are hearing this, then the truth did not reach you in time. Do-Yun closed his eyes. The recording continued. Someone inside this family has been changing information before it reaches the board. Investment opportunities have been redirected. Documents have been altered. And when I began asking questions, evidence was created against Nia. Nia's face went pale. Do-Yun slowly turned toward her. His father's voice continued. Do not blame her. She was never the threat. The words struck the silence like a door opening. Do-Yun's grip tightened around the edge of the cabinet. Min-suk. The name was never spoken, but it filled Do-Yun's mind. For 7 years, he had believed Nia had betrayed him. Now his father's voice was telling him something far worse. Nia reached into her bag and removed a folded letter. I received this after I left, she whispered. Do-Yun looked at the handwriting. His father's. You knew? Not everything. Then why didn't you come back? Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Because the letter asked me to protect you. She unfolded it with shaking fingers. Not from someone outside the company, she said. From the person closest to you. Do-Yun's face lost its color. The recording crackled again. His father took a slow breath. If Do-Yun learns what he sacrificed for the company. The voice suddenly broke into static. Then stopped. Do-Yun stared at the silent device. Nia stood beside him, holding the letter between trembling fingers. And beneath the oldest hotel his family had ever built, one unfinished sentence became more frightening than any answer. The silence after the recording felt heavier than the walls around them. Do-Yun stared at the dark recording device, but he was no longer seeing it. His father's voice still echoed inside him. Every word had torn through 7 years of certainty. Then his grief changed. He turned toward Nia. Why? She looked at him carefully. Why what? Why didn't you fight harder? His voice rose before he could stop it. Why did you let me believe you? Nia's face went still. For a moment, Do-Yun thought she would walk away. Instead, she gave a quiet, tired laugh. You still don't understand. His jaw tightened. Then help me understand. Nia looked toward the narrow staircase leading back to the world above them. On the night our marriage ended, you stood in front of me and said something I have never forgotten. Do-Yun's expression changed. She turned back to him. You said, I no longer know who you are. The words returned to him. Not as a memory he controlled. As a wound he had caused. Do-Yun lowered his eyes. I was angry. So was I. I thought you had betrayed me. And I thought my husband knew me. Her voice cracked slightly, but she continued. That night, I realized I could bring you every truth I had, and you would still search my face for another lie. Do-Yun said nothing. Nia stepped closer, but there was no warmth in the distance between them. You asked why I stopped fighting for you to believe me. Her eyes shone. Because I should never have had to fight that hard for the man who promised to know my heart. The words left him without defense. I'm sorry, he whispered. Nia closed her eyes briefly. Then she shook her head. An apology can be honest and still not be enough. Do-Yun looked at her. 7 years? He could not place those years back into her hands. He could not undo the nights she had spent rebuilding a life without the future they once planned. Slowly, Nia reached into her bag. She removed an old envelope. Inside was a sealed airplane ticket. Do-Yun frowned. "I kept it," she said. The date printed on it was the morning she left. His breath caught. Nia turned the ticket over. On the back, written in faded ink, was his name. Kang Do-Yun. He looked at her, confused. "What is this?" Nia's fingers remained wrapped around the edge of the ticket. For the first time since he had returned, her expression softened with something deeper than anger. Regret. "You weren't the only person who could have walked away that day," she whispered. Do-Yun stared at his name. And suddenly, the ticket felt heavier than paper. The unused ticket lay between them like a small piece of time that had refused to disappear. Do-Yun picked it up carefully. "There were 2, Nia said. He looked at her. "2 tickets?" She nodded. "I was leaving the city. But I didn't want to leave without giving us one last chance." The words made him go still. Nia moved toward the window. Beyond the glass, the evening lights trembled against the rain. "That night, after you accused me, I found out enough to know something was wrong. I thought if I could make you listen, we could leave everything behind for a while. You wanted me to come with you? I hoped you would." Do-Yun stared at the ticket in his hand. Nia continued quietly. "I sent you a message. I told you where I would be. I told you to come if there was still any part of you that wanted the truth." His face tightened. "I never got that message." "I know." She turned toward him. "And you sent nothing back." Do-Yun reached for his phone, though he knew the answer was buried years in the past. "What did I receive?" Nia watched him carefully. He closed his eyes as a memory returned. A message. Short. Cold. Certain. It had claimed that Nia had already left with confidential company documents. At the time, his anger had accepted it without question. "Minsuk," Do-Yun whispered. Nia did not answer. But she did not need to. For years, a lie had stood between them because someone had placed it there. Yet another truth hurt even more. Do-Yun had believed it. "I could have checked," he said. "Yes." "I could have called you." "Yes." His voice fell. "But I didn't." Nia looked down. "And I could have come back the next day. I could have knocked on your door again. Why didn't you?" A faint, painful smile touched her lips. "Pride can protect a broken heart. It can also keep it broken." Do-Yun looked at the unused ticket again. "You kept this for 7 years. Not to punish you. Then why?" Nia took a slow breath. "Because I couldn't destroy the last hope I carried that night." His fingers turned the ticket over. There, beneath his name, was a handwritten message in faded ink. He read it once. Then again. "I would have forgiven you that night." Do-Yun's breath caught. The room became completely silent. 7 years of regret seemed to gather inside those few words. He lifted his eyes toward Nia. But she had already turned away. And for the first time, Do-Yun understood that the greatest thing he had lost was not his marriage. It was the moment she had still been willing to save it. Do-Yun found the missing pages where he least wanted to look. Inside Minsuk's private office. The room was dark when he entered, lit only by the city beyond the glass walls. Nia stood near the door, watching him search the shelves with growing tension. "This feels wrong," she said quietly. Do-Yun did not stop. "So did believing you were guilty." His words carried no anger toward her this time. Only regret. At the back of a locked cabinet, beneath old financial reports, his hand found a thin leather folder. Inside were the missing diary pages. For several seconds, he could not bring himself to read them. Then he did. The first page described Minsuk's years of work beside Do-Yun's father. The sacrifices. The long nights. The deals he had helped save. But another line revealed the wound beneath it. Min-suk believes I gave Do-Yun a future I never trusted him to earn alone. Do-Yun frowned. He turned the page. His father had written that Min-suk no longer complained openly. Instead, his disappointment had become quieter, colder, more patient. Do-Yun slowly lowered the paper. So that's why, he whispered. Nia stepped closer. What does it say? He handed her the pages. Together, they uncovered the final truth. Min-suk had not acted because he simply wanted more money. For years, he had believed the company was partly his life's work. He had watched Do-Yun inherit trust, authority, and opportunities that Min-suk felt he had spent decades earning. Resentment had become obsession. And eventually, he had created the betrayal that destroyed Do-Yun and Nia's marriage. Do-Yun closed his eyes. The proof was finally complete. But the truth brought another problem. If he exposed Min-suk, the company could lose investor confidence. Projects could be delayed. Thousands of adult employees could face an uncertain future. His phone rang. A board member. Do-Yun, the voice said urgently. We need to protect the company. Whatever you found, think carefully before making this public. He ended the call. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Nia looked at him. You once chose silence. Do-Yun nodded. And it cost me everything. His eyes moved to the diary pages. Then to the photograph of Min-suk still resting inside the folder. He could protect the company's reputation. Or tell the truth and accept whatever followed. Slowly, Do-Yun picked up his phone. He called the executive assistant. Arrange an emergency company meeting. A pause. For when? Do-Yun looked at Nia. Tomorrow would change more than the company. It would force him to become the man he should have been 7 years earlier. His voice became steady. Tomorrow morning. Then he ended the call. Nia watched him in silence. Do-Yun held the missing pages against his chest and said quietly, Tomorrow, I will tell them everything. The boardroom was silent when Do-Yun placed the old diary pages on the table. Across from him, Min-suk sat perfectly still. Nia stood near the window, watching the man she once loved prepare to destroy the silence that had ruled their lives for 7 years. Do-Yun looked around the room. I called this meeting because the company deserves the truth. No one moved. He presented the original contract. Then the missing diary pages. Finally, the recording. His father's voice filled the room. When it ended, the silence felt different. Heavier. Honest. Do-Yun turned toward Nia. 7 years ago, I believed evidence without listening to the person beside me. His voice tightened. I was wrong. Nia lowered her eyes. I allowed my fear and pride to become silence. Do-Yun continued. And that silence helped destroy someone who did not deserve to be destroyed. Then he faced Min-suk. I understand now that resentment does not appear in a single day. It grows when pain is hidden and sacrifice feels forgotten. Min-suk's face changed slightly. But understanding your pain does not make your choices right. There was no anger in Do-Yun's voice. Only certainty. The board voted to remove Min-suk from leadership and begin an independent review. At the same time, Do-Yun presented a transition plan designed to protect the company and its adult employees from unnecessary disruption. He had chosen truth. But he refused to let revenge guide what came after it. Months passed. On the opening day of a new hotel, sunlight moved across carved African patterns, warm wood, and quiet Korean elegance. Nia stood near the entrance, looking at the building she had designed. Do-Yun approached with the old envelope in his hands. I have something for you. She opened it. Inside was a single handwritten note. This time, when the truth arrives, I will listen. Nia looked up, tears shining in her eyes. Do-Yun took a slow breath. My father offered you a partnership years ago. I'm offering it now because I know what you can build, not because I expect forgiveness. Nia folded the note carefully. I won't accept it as an apology. I know. She studied him for a moment. Then promise me something. Anything. Her expression softened. Our future will never again depend on silence. Do-Yun nodded. It won't. This time, the promise was not followed by another secret. Nia smiled through her tears and turned toward the open doors. Do-Yun walked beside her. Not back into the life they had lost, but into one they were finally wise enough to build. Because sometimes the greatest thing we lose is not love itself, but the courage to listen before silence becomes permanent.